Welcome to the Dr. Dad's podcast, where a naturopath and chiropractor come together each week to share lifestyle medicine, health advice, and inspiring interviews with some of the top experts in health and wellness, bringing you the latest in nutrition, exercise, ancient healing, toxins and detox, your microbiome, mindset, hormones, brain, and much more. Stay tuned. We're going to teach you how to experience growth daily. Hey everybody, this is Dr. David Wardy coming at you with another episode of the Dr. Dad's podcast, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Nicholas Jensen. What's up, my man?
Doing well, buddy. We were just chatting about the weather before we got on. It's winter time in Vancouver, and that can come with snow and rain and sunshine all in the same day. So we've been enjoying playing outside with the boys and getting a little taste of some of that snow. But loving life right now, doing well, and I'm excited for our guest today.
We've been looking forward to this one, man. We have a guest in-house today at my clinic, and I want to talk a little bit about this woman real quick. So with what I do for a living, there's not that many people that I can kind of see that common space with. So this is one of my soul sisters, my energy sisters. Just good to always be able to have those people that you can go to and kind of talk to these things about. So we wanted to talk about Reiki today, and I'm really looking forward to this one. So this is the first person that came up when we thought about this. I even talked to Clarissa. I was like, who do we get on to talk about this? And she's like, oh, you got to get Danny on for sure. And I was like, absolutely. So we have a really good friend of mine, also the person who does Reiki on me as well. We have Daniela Chisolm on today. And I'm going to let her introduce herself in a second, but I'm really excited to have her on for a number of reasons. One, she's going to share some stuff, but she's got quite the journey, and she's still in the middle of her journey with all this. So she's going to really educate us today on what Reiki is, how it's affected her journey, and where she is today. And then hopefully by the end of this, everybody will understand what it is and want to go out and get it done to experience what I think is an incredible form of medicine. I would call it medicine. And we'll get into that, of what kind of medicine it is. But Danny, thank you so much for joining us. This is awesome.
Thank you, David. That was a very kind and generous introduction. Nick, I'm so happy to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you and your wonderful wife. First, David is a great friend of mine. And it was really surprising and touching that you invited me to be your guest for Reiki. I'm definitely in the middle of the journey right now, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you both and just talking about Reiki. It's now one of my favorite topics to explore. I love any opportunity I can. And a little bit about myself to give some background. I'm a Reiki practitioner under the Lineage-Usui Shiki Ryoho. I've been practicing for a few years now, a level 2 practitioner, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. But I'm also a candidate right now for a Reiki master. And I've been on that journey for just about a year, and kind of don't have a definite time when that will be over. So I'm really in the middle of the meat of my journey with Reiki for this part. The journey always goes on, as we all know, and continues into these different stages. But really happy to be here. Looking forward to whatever conversation comes up surrounding Reiki and what I can provide my perspective. And I would love to have everybody feel that Reiki is accessible and something that is interesting, that they may want to try at some point, or just know a little bit more about.
So for our listeners real quick, you are a Reiki practitioner, but share a little bit about what you do outside of this world.
Yes. The other side. So I didn't give up my day job to just be a Reiki practitioner. I kind of tried that for a few months and found myself back in the professional realm. I'm a lawyer. I'm practice here in El Paso. And my career used to be, before Reiki, I used to be a criminal defense attorney. So I was here, and on the border, there's lots of opportunity for clients, as you can imagine. And I practiced with my father for about 8 years doing criminal defense work. And that was very interesting. That was pre-Reiki. Post-Reiki, I now am a lawyer for mental health, the LGBTQ community, and elderly law. So I have made a giant shift, but I did take some time off to give Reiki my full attention and opened a studio. And then I came back and found a balance where I practice law. I found a type of law where I can be of service and also integrate and implement my Reiki practice in my studio on the side. So that's kind of the other half of what I do.
And we'll talk in a second, but Reiki has kind of led you on this wholeness that you have in your life now of this balance, right?
Absolutely. I mean, prior to encountering Reiki and my Reiki teacher, I was kind of in that mindset of really here and only in the physical form, kind of, money driven, success, have the big cases, be in the paper, that kind of mentality. And slowly, as my experience with Reiki developed, that softened and opened up different parts of me where now I can use those skills that I have as a lawyer really to be more of service and something that's more in alignment with how I feel inside. It's a kind of a reflection now. And I'm working with these wonderful populations here locally where I can use all my Reiki skills and experiences with the mental health community, which right now we all know is huge. There's there's more discussions about mental health as of lately, but for some time it's been pretty taboo. So I'm able to kind of weave together Reiki practitioner and attorney into this really beautiful practice that's opening up into mental health. And now I'm starting to get into transgender law, really allowing Reiki to help guide me to how I can be best of service.
It's beautiful. So let's get started. Sorry, I know our listeners are like, what is Reiki? So let's just start there.
Sure, absolutely. And Reiki in itself, it's a Japanese healing practice. The word Reiki, we can break it down, Japanese word, Rei, universal life, and Ki, energy. So Reiki, universal life energy. And when we talk about universal life energy, that's that energy that's flowing through everything, everyone, every being. So that is Reiki.
So we hear this, I mean, me and Nick talked about this on our energy medicine episode. We call it, it's called Qi in Chinese medicine, right? And prana. And
sure.
It has all these different meanings. But in Japanese, they're using this word Reiki to describe this universal life force energy.
Correct. So from this practice, that would be Reiki. That would be what encompasses Reiki.
So take us on a journey real quick on why would somebody want to go in and have a Reiki treatment?
Okay.
Like, what would bring somebody into using a service like this to help themselves?
Sure. Reiki can be for all kinds of different reasons. People can come in because they want to feel more relaxed in their body. They can deal with physical pain. They may have, some issues they want to work on. Reiki can be utilized if you're working on emotional work. You want to break through some emotional barriers that you may have, or you're working on mental patterns that you may be wanting to change or expand on. So it kind of hits all levels. And the great thing about Reiki and the experience of receiving treatment is you don't exactly have to have a set goal or something that you want to achieve. It can be simply as you want to see what the experience is. Like so many different things, we hear about it, we get curious, and that's enough to bring someone in to say, I'd like to try this and see where it unfolds from there.
What a beautiful thing, somebody going into something without an attachment to the actual result of what they're expecting, right?
Sure. I mean, and that's a work in progress for everybody, right? I mean,
absolutely.
we have, one of the teachings kind of that has been instilled is this through Reiki in the practice is this not having an expectation when I go give a treatment or I receive a treatment, to allow the Reiki to do whatever the Reiki is going to do, rather than saying, I want my right knee to be fixed. I want this pain in my heart to go away, whatever it is, to, and to some degree, walking into the unknown a bit, surrendering some, and saying, I have this in mind that I'm working on, but also coupling that with letting the Reiki do what the Reiki does.
And I think that's going to be different depending on not just what you're going into that person for when you get it done, but the time and space you're in when you have that done.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I first encountered Reiki, I was only coming at it from a physical level, like, oh, I've got this leg that has damage, I have this foot that hurts, I can't walk properly, this is it, I'm going to learn this practice and I'm going to give myself Reiki and it's going to go away, but there's so many more layers than that. We may ultimately, the leg may feel better and the foot may not hurt, but sometimes we have to go through a process in order for that to, whether it's an emotional processing or changing our mental patterns, whatever it is, in order for that end result to be, my leg doesn't hurt, my foot isn't in pain anymore.
Yeah. For me, and Nick, I want to hear, because I know you've had it done as well. And I want you to share your experiences, because you've had it done many, 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 many times. But for me, I remember when I first got exposed to it, Clarissa had gone to a level 1 and 2 training, and she'd come home and she's like, hey, well, let me try this stuff on you. So I remember I laid down on the bed and she just started putting her hands over me. But I think she did 20 minutes on me. But by the time she was done, ridiculously relaxed, like overly calm sense of just, everything letting go after she was done. And so that was my very, very first experience. So then I remember my second experience was actually with Danny. And Danny's like, hey, I'm going to give you a long distance treatment. So then this was the new for me, like long distance. And we'll talk about this. But so I'm thinking, okay, long distance. All right, let's see what happens here. So she texts me, I think like at 8:30. And I told her, let's do it before I go to bed. And so she's like, hey, I'm going to get started. Just, lay down, relax. And I think I lasted maybe 6 minutes and I passed out and I went to bed. But I had some of the deepest, most restorative, restful sleep that I had had in weeks after she worked on me. And I felt amazing the next day. So then I woke up and I was like, holy crap, this stuff's awesome. So then, of course, I'm asking Clarissa like a million questions. And the next thing I run into Danny, I'm asking all these questions. And then I've actually had sessions with Danny in her studio where she's worked on me, which was incredible as well. And for me, man, my go-to for Reiki is like when I'm on that overload of stress and I'm losing resilience, that's when I like to go do it. Because it kind of completely resets me and pulls me right back to that equilibrium of myself. That's the best way I can describe that.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful experience that you have with Reiki. And that's generally what people, experience. It's like this deep relaxation. It's kind of, the tension is gone, the stress dissipates some. And, when we don't have those things in our body is allowed to heal itself. It has the ability to get in there and we don't have these kind of overriding stressors that are getting in the way. And that's really, it's kind of like going on a cloud, right? You go in and you don't have to do anything other than lay there. And then that kind of gets the curiosity going for a lot of people. And I don't know if that was for you. Like you said, you started asking questions like, what is this?
Well, I just wanted to create some understanding there, right? Because you feel it and you're just like, holy cow, like how did just laying here and having somebody place their hands over me and move, for the last 40 minutes, put me in that kind of state? Because you can't achieve that just by yourself. So you see this coherence happening amongst two people while you're going through this type of work, right? Mm-hmm. Nick, what was it like for you, man?
Yeah, I love that you just said that, David, because I think that was a really poignant part of Reiki, was just this human touch, this human connection. And obviously there's more happening for the Reiki master practitioner there. And maybe you can speak to what's actually happening for the practitioner that's being maybe transmitted or facilitated to the individual who's receiving the treatment. But it's very different than just lying down, taking a nap. There's this definite, I don't want to put words in the mouth of Reiki, but this exchange of energy or the facilitation of flow that really encourages a state of healing. And the times that I've had it done, it's been usually because there's been a life obstacle that feels like a mental block, an emotional block, or some sort of spiritual interference that just helps to sort of ease the tension or the resistance of that experience in life. And so going through a treatment session, and my wife Sonia, I mean, she does it multiple times with a lady here, and she always comes back just in ease, essentially. And I think that's probably the best way to describe what it feels like after the fact, is just the state of ease. But I would love for you to sort of explain what's happening to the body, that the body of who's receiving the treatment, but also what's happening to you as a practitioner. Like, what are you facilitating, or what words would you use to describe what's happening during a session?
Well, what we're kind of taught, and what I was taught, is hands-on Reiki on. As soon as we put hands and we lay hands, Reiki is doing what Reiki does, which is, again, we're going back to this universal life force, which is this expansive thing that maybe is beyond comprehension, doing its thing. And so as a practitioner, what I focus on is just trying to get out of the way and allowing Reiki to go in and do whatever it is it needs to, wherever it needs to go, whatever it needs to do for that particular person. So, often I may perceive, warmth in my hands, or relaxation myself, but a majority of the time I'm just allowing Reiki to be there, being kind of the conduit or the vessel for Reiki to do what it's going to do anyways. So it's interesting because it's the thing about Reiki is it seems almost overly simple, right? You just put hands and all this stuff is happening, and there's this healing and whatnot, but that's the beauty of it as well, the simplicity of it. I mean, I don't have to do anything other than place the hands and remove myself as much as I can and allow for what's natural to happen. So I don't know if that's quite what you were looking for me to explain, but I would say that would be my experience. Is I also get that deep relaxation. I feel good after giving a treatment. It's kind of like I'm in that space. And with the touch, I mean, we're so used to either people are comfortable and we have a romantic touch, or we have kind of, people who have an aversion to touch. Reiki comes in and brings like this very interesting, different type of touch that people get to relate in. It's like I'm here, I'm with you, but I'm not intrusive with you. I'm not apart, from you. We're sharing the space, and it's a beautiful way to relate to people that I never experienced until interacting with Reiki. It's this different space of touch that opens. So I'd say, as a practitioner, being able to interact with people in that space during a treatment is something that stands out to me for my own experience. And being able to provide that space for people to get to know that kind of touch with Reiki and associate that with Reiki as this, a safe space where there's going to be laying of hands and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved your explanation. I thought that was beautiful. And when you think of a lot of the work in energy medicine, a lot of it is sort of letting that ego step aside and just letting what's supposed to happen. And it's a practice. I mean, no doubt, like it's a meditative experience for you to be in that space of sort of letting go and letting things happen the way they're supposed to. And I can't help but think, like, I mean, thinking back to my the sessions that I've done, it's always, as the client or the one receiving, I'm like hyper aware of everything that's going on. So you're tuning into like these sensations of your body vibrating or oscillating, or it's like this sense of motion that's happening and movement within the body, and it's very visceral. And it, like David brought up, it's very different than just lying down and quote unquote relaxing. There's this very visceral, subtle shifting that's going on in the body. And so it's hard not to think, like, again, as someone receiving, that something is happening. And so there's this almost like expectation and this positive feedback, and maybe a bit of a placebo response, a powerful one, that's letting you have an experience that something is definitely happening. And then I think it helps both the practitioner and the one receiving to gain more depth to it, because there is truly an experience. It's very different, I think, than, I don't know, taking a supplement. And you take a supplement, like, I think it's helping. but this is something where you feel the physical touch, but then you feel something beyond that physical touch, which is subtle. And yeah, I love the way that you described it.
Oh, that was that follow up was great. It's like sharing a space like this larger space together, but having a separate experience, but all at the same time. It's very interwoven with the respect of, this is what's happening for you, this is what's happening for me. We're also sharing this, this experience together without intrusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important, especially when people are being vulnerable and going somewhere to somebody and saying, hey, I want to work on this, or I would like to have, this treatment. Being able to have that vulnerability taken care of and respected and held in a responsible manner is really important.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that also gives it some differentiation between, like even a massage or other, maybe craniosacral, other forms of treatment that involve touch in the body, which is they're all phenomenal in their own way. It's just there's a uniqueness to the subtlety of this experience that I think that people really are drawn to. And you think of what's the one thing that you want when you're a kid and you're hurt? You just want to be held, in unconditional love, in a space of healing frequency, that where obviously say the mom energy is really there, just wanting that support to be there for the kid that's in pain or emotional distress or what have you. And and thinking back to my experiences, it's always been this very nurturing, loving touch, and which is kind of exactly what you want when you're experiencing some level of trauma or pain or emotional challenge, etc. So I love that. I'm curious, you're in two different worlds. Like, it's fascinating to think of someone who's got the foot in the world of the lawyer, which is a very like logical type of mindset, into this whole right brain creative aspect. How is your work as a lawyer changed? Not just the people you work with, but how has your work as a lawyer changed as a result of this practice that you're doing now?
Oh, I'd say the word that summarizes it: balance. I have a balance now. I can be in one world and in this mental space and law and rules and structure, and then I get to nurture the other part of me with Reiki and the experiences that I share, and the softness. It's kind of the stronger energy, and then when I'm in this space of Reiki, for me it's softer. The more that essence, feminine essence, comes up for me in particular. And wow, I love my job a lot more now because of the balance, because I'm not just jammed in one frame of mind, one state of being all the time. And it's interesting how they actually overlap more than you would think. When I talk with my mental health patients, I go out and I represent clients who are in psychiatric facilities, public and private. And you'd be surprised how often energy comes up. I've had conversations about Reiki with some of my clients, not because I say, hey, can I give you Reiki treatment by any means, but just when they'll share with me the way that they perceive and they feel and energies, and they say, you wouldn't understand. And oftentimes because I have the attorney-client privilege, I can bring in these experiences, and I share more openly. So, well, I kind of do understand, and I'll share. Well, I practice Reiki, and oh wow, it bridges this gap. Of I'm not just this lawyer who comes in. It humanizes the both of us, and it just creates this beautiful connection where we can relate, and I can relate with them in these other ways. And so I guess it's starting to intertwine and interweave my worlds together. And I'll kind of talk with the colleague. Lawyers, I don't know. I think we have maybe the reputation of not being too open to things like energy work and alternative healing and whatnot. And I guess that was maybe more of a stigma I was putting on the profession from myself, because when I started sharing that, especially lately, just sharing, when we talked about holistic things, I would share, I have a Reiki studio. I was shocked the amount of lawyers who had either gotten a Reiki treatment, received a Reiki treatment, knew what Reiki was, that kind of led the conversation to yoga and oil, all these things. And so the more I allowed myself to integrate into not just I'm lawyer, I'm Reiki practitioner, and to just being and letting all these parts integrate, I saw around me there was connection all around me that was waiting to happen. And that was awesome. So where I used to kind of compartmentalize, well, I'm lawyer here and that's how it is, and I'll only show these parts of myself. Reiki and the practice with Reiki now allows me to have a broader scope of people I interact with, and a richer, deeper experience with my colleagues and my clients. So it's interesting. They seem so worlds apart, but there's so much more interwoven than I could have imagined. And ultimately, what I would love to do is I would love to integrate and one day I would like for the mental health system here and locally, that would be my goal, is to have a way for mental health clients, patients to receive Reiki. It can be done at a distance. It can be, something to be set up. It's one of those things that I would like to put together as more time passes and meet with the right people locally. But there's so much healing that can be done. And especially with the population with mental health, it seems like the pieces are coming together for a reason.
Beautiful.
So, Danny, we were talking a little bit before we got on the call. I'm listening to you speak, and I mean, you've gone from having this practice done to you to now you are a practitioner, and now you're moving into trying to become a master of this. But I mean, it's had this massive impact on you as a person and just your overall life and your well-being. So it's kind of gotten a little beyond just you show up and you do this on people.
Sure.
How is Reiki playing a role in your life as a whole outside of just from the wholeness? I mean, it's like this massive journey, and it's been life-changing.
Oh, absolutely. In a short period of time.
Yeah.
Like a
very, very 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, it's I took a level 1 class with my teacher here over at Ananda, which is a local yoga studio, and then very quickly took a level 2. And the level 1, I wanted to heal my body. I had some I've been traveling abroad, and I had had some issues and wanted to heal my body. Level 1, great. Heard about Reiki, so it's going to be wonderful. Then the curiosity developed. He offered a level 2 class. Took level 2. Wow, that opened up some more doors for me. For me personally, it was a mental or an emotional healing journey. And also for me, it was coming home. All of a sudden, a lot of things were making sense. I've always been a very sensitive individual to other people, surroundings, environments. And suddenly I was finding myself in a practice where things made sense. And some of my sensitivities were beneficial rather than being a hindrance or something that was creating suffering in my life. I found a practice that was giving me some structure and discipline in the way that I perceive myself and others, and a lot of room for growth. And shortly after level 2 and practicing and meeting with my teacher, frequently, I made the leap. And just before the pandemic, I had reached out and had lunch with my teacher and asked, well, what's the next step? How does this work? Like, what's level 3 or 4? Or, how does it work? And we had a talk about apprenticeship for Reiki Master. And I didn't really ask much more. Thinking back, maybe it would have been good to ask a few more questions, like how long does this last, or what do we have to do? I skipped over all that, went straight to it, and just asked my teacher, sure, would you take me as a candidate? And from there forward, we've been working very diligently. And because of the pandemic, at a very rapid pace, because one, my teacher is here locally, and there have been a lot of restrictions, of course. So I've been able to really focus in on this new path, which is the apprenticeship. So I've been at it a year. There's not a definite end to it. It's when the teacher and student finally come to that magic moment where it's happened and we both feel that the time has come, that I have reached Reiki Master. But through this whole process, going from the physical, and for me, it was the mental, emotional, and now the Reiki Master apprenticeship, it's turned into a way of living for myself. I hold the practice very dear with a lot of respect and reverence. And for me, it's a way that when I wake up in the morning and I give myself a treatment, and I'm saying to myself, and how am I going to have this day? Who am I going to be today? How am I going to interact with others today? How am I going to hold myself in the world for today? I lean on this practice as my framework. And from that, and consistently doing that, it's turned into this beautiful relationship that holds me up when I, don't know what to do, and guides me and shows me the next steps. Alongside, of course, my teacher is a huge component in this practice. But it's become this way of being for me. And it's not like that for everybody. Some people take a level 1 class, or some people don't even take class at all. They go to a treatment and it's wonderful, and they may go back or they may not. Some people go to level 1, they learn to treat themselves. They can treat other people, family members, friends, other people, and that's enough, and it stops there. Then some people go to level 2. They want to send distance. They want to go there in that space. Perfect. For some people, it ends there. For me, it was just like all the switches were turning on inside. Everything was coming into alignment. Everything felt right. Everything was making sense for me personally. And wow, to take that next step to apprenticeship, I had no idea really what to expect. I thought I was going to learn cool stuff and, just really out there. And what I'm learning is to master my own emotions, to master myself is really what it's about. And for me, it's been that going deep, going to those places that you may not want to go, but are worth going, that create the beautiful. And just as deep as you go and into the darkness or into the harsh parts of yourself, the blissful experiences are that much richer and deeper as well. So it's not everybody goes to become Reiki master. And even, at some point I could be in the apprenticeship and say, I'm good. I don't actually want to be Reiki master. Thank you. This is great. And that's, of course, always possible. But for me, it's just become a way of for me to be, and to a practice to lean on, so that I know how I would like to treat myself and how I would like to be with others. And that's what I think in totality is the wide range of what Reiki can be to somebody. Something as simple as a 40-minute treatment one time, perfect. Or all the way up to this more in-depth training and introspective look at yourself and your way of being and who you would like to become.
That was amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
For sure.
Thank you, guys.
I'm curious, when you hear of someone being called to a practice, I'm always curious about that journey, because for you, this isn't about a vocation or having some way to even help people. It's like there's this different aspect to you, which I find fascinating, because you do have your foot in both worlds, and some people may describe that foot in both worlds as chaos, but you describe it as balance, which I think is really cool. And so on this journey that you're on with this practice, I love how it seems like there's a different kind of driving force and it's not even really about like, I'm going to heal the world. It's not even about that. It's like there's this innate curiosity that I'm perceiving based on what you're saying. But could you describe that a little bit more? Like, what do you think is the pull towards deciding, this journey that you spoke so beautifully about, that you decided to be an apprentice? I think that's interesting, because as people are tuning in, I'm sure they think and reflect on their own lives about, I want to do something that's really purposeful in life. And often when people make that decision, it's this giant leap out of what they're doing, putting all their eggs in the basket of like, this is going to give me purpose. You've done it in a completely different way, where you've found balance in equality with both in a way that they actually harmonize together. So what's part of that driving force for you to want to dive in deeper?
That's a good question. And I think that it comes back to what gets most people curious and seeking. It's usually from a state of suffering, whether it's emotionally in pain, physically in pain, and that's really where it kind of started. It burst through the seed of suffering I was experiencing that I didn't even know I was experiencing really, until I started to uncover it layer by layer. And it became overwhelming at some point as I was going inward and with the practice. Is there going to be another side to this, or is this just going to be, just in this space for so long? And as I practiced patience and consistency, I was able to start to receive these beautiful gifts. Whether I was more patient that day, or I was a kinder person, or I didn't feel so much emotional turmoil, that started to show me, okay, there is the other side of something. And that started to motivate me. It was just becoming more present to my life that I actually have, rather than trying to be seeking for something outside of me, a different life that I envisioned and I thought was going to be better. I awoke to myself and how beautiful all of the components that were within me are, the harsh ones that may seem harsh to me, the beautiful ones, my experiences, my hopes and dreams. And I just really started to see, hey, I'm pretty cool. And it was from that space where the suffering started to alchemize into this love for myself that I grew closer to the practice. And I stopped looking at Reiki as something I was using to help me. And I started moving into a space of partnership and allowing Reiki to be with me, and to be with Reiki and to see what was going to happen. And yeah, some days it's the rough and it's a bit emotional and it's a tough day, or it's chaotic feeling. And then there's going to be the day where it feels, peace inside and more moments of happiness and lightness than not. So it was kind of both. It was the suffering that ignited the fire. And then as the healing journey and I changed my perspective of what is Reiki to me and what is it in my life, that it opened me up to the self-love journey, and the working with my emotions and working with my mental patterns, and so I stopped taking and started just being with who I am and working from that space. And the more I was with myself, the more beauty started to appear in front of me in all senses of the word. And the career started changing, and the friends were becoming richer friendships, and my relationship with my parents changed and morphed. And I started to see, okay. And then the consistency from there, because then, you have a period where it's beautiful and light and wonderful, and not attaching to that either, allowing that to be there for when it's there and to release it when it's not, but knowing that at the base, with my consistency and trusting myself, and also, stepping into the unknown with this practice, that more often than not, now I know how to handle myself better. I know how to interact in a different way. And it became exciting and interesting, and my curiosity started to come up, so it was like many people, the suffering that ignited the fire, and now it's in this kind of curiosity, exploration, experience.
So let me ask you something. For someone who maybe is in a place right now where they're in that suffering where you were,
Mm-hmm.
what would you tell those people? Would you tell them, because I think a lot of people think sometimes when life's not great, they look outwards for answers in the world to fix their problems. And you said something very important right now, and you said, I went inwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm from what I'm hearing from you is Reiki has been this massive catalyst to allow you to go inwards.
Absolutely.
And that's the magic of what it's brought to your journey.
Absolutely. And I would say to somebody who is in suffering right now and unsure if there's another side, that perhaps to allow themselves, whether it's Reiki or some other modality, to give yourself an opportunity to meet yourself. And if that starts with curiosity from listening to this and hearing information about Reiki, and you feel drawn to go have a Reiki treatment, and that's where it starts for you, fantastic. Just allow a little bit of openness and trust within yourself to just try. And for me, that was kind of what I fell back on time and time again when it would get tough and difficult when I was processing, was, well, why don't I just try? And if something doesn't work or I don't like it, I can stop. And that goes with, as simple as I tell this to my clients that come in. At any point during the treatment, we can stop. If you don't like it, it doesn't feel good, you're nerve, whatever, you don't even have to tell me, we can stop. And I think that carries over into life. If we give ourselves the opportunity and we believe that there's a space, that just the idea that there might be something other than suffering, and we try, then we open up. We open up to the possibility of something happening. If we stay closed in that space, out of whatever it is, maybe fear or something like that, then there's not really a space for something to come in to help that suffering. And just that there's so much beauty inside. It just sometimes takes a little bit of time to go through and go through the layers of what we perceive ourselves to be or what our life should be. And just little bites at a time have been really helpful and important for me, rather than trying to say that my life needs to look like this. I don't want to be suffering anymore, and just say, well, maybe today I would like to suffer a little bit less, or I'd like to have just a little bit more peace inside, or maybe explore what that even means. I think that's what I would offer to somebody who's in a state of feeling suffering right now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in the world right now that are experiencing suffering. And, and I love that you also spoke to the fact that, just part of the journey for you is just being okay with when things aren't all roses and rainbows. Because wouldn't that be nice if that was the case? Or would it be? Maybe we wouldn't appreciate the contrast of life, which is what I think you're speaking to. This is such a powerful conversation for many reasons, but I think mostly because things are challenging right now in the world, and we all have a perceived experience based on how we feel things are supposed to be. And I've come to really appreciate that the underlying framework for life is uncertainty, and it's absolutely built into every day and every moment. And so many of us, I think, are experiencing suffering because we want certainty. We want the opposite of the world that we live in. We want to know what tomorrow is going to look like. We want to know when this pandemic will be finished. We want to know when our partner will start being nice to us, or when finances or whatever are just going to start going our way. We're always looking for that grass is greener. And I think a really powerful message, which is what you're sharing, is that you developed and you learned to appreciate a level of resilience and a different appreciation for the challenges that show up, and reframing that suffering as a tool for leverage and opening and learning and growing, as opposed to being a chronic source of pain that we are relating to on a very regular basis. So very, very powerful teachings. And I could see why people would want to work with you, both as a lawyer but also as a practitioner, because you've gone through your own experience, and it's a very relatable and endearing quality to know that the person they're working with can really receive them where they are. And it kind of goes back to as you described Reiki, it's this universal flow of energy. And wouldn't it be nice if we could all appreciate the ebb and flow of life and the challenges and the circumstance and our perception of the moments that we're in? And what if we could just sort of be in flow a little bit more often, and appreciate this level of unknowing that's happening all around us all the time. And so with that sort of backdrop, what does life look like for you in like 5 years from now? I mean, I really like the vision that you were sort of tapping into with this more of a support system for people suffering from mental health. But could you kind of elaborate a little bit more of like, what could that look like?
That's a good question, Nick. That's something I'm going to have to develop as I'm here at 5 years from now. I'm so happy you asked that. I can see the beginnings, like I was sharing, of the law and Reiki coming together. And, I think 5 years from now, I would love to see here locally, of course, because this is my hometown of El Paso, to have a bridge between what we're doing now with mental health and what we could be doing. And I think what we could be doing, I think that we could be utilizing Reiki and other holistic and healing modalities to fill in the gaps of what's not being provided right now. We do have very real gaps in the mental health system as a way to heal our community. I would like to, at some point, once I become a Reiki master, whatever date that is and time, at that point, I'll be able to have my own students and be able to teach them the practice as well. I would love to have Reiki have more of a presence here in El Paso. I would love for it to be a more commonly used term in households, in schools, perhaps, in with children even. I mean, with medical field, there's so many different fields right now that there is it would make such a beautiful pairing with something like Reiki. So I'd say, gosh, if I'm going to dream right now, I would say that I would have some sort of maybe agreement or contract with the mental health facilities where myself, other practitioners, open to all Reiki practices and practitioners that would like to be interested in something like this, have some sort of contract with mental health facilities where they're able to provide Reiki in some degree. And of course, it would be case by case scenario depending on the client and whatnot. But to have Reiki be a presence in mental health in some form or the other, and just taking away maybe if there is, I think there is a little bit of a stigma on just energy and energy work and Reiki itself because it's not as familiar here. To have it be more of a norm and to have people feel that it's accessible, that they have a variety of people to choose from, a variety of practices and types of Reiki to choose from, that one that fits them best. Yeah, and I would like to have the community here, a Reiki community, because there are different styles of Reiki and different lineages of Reiki, to be together, to have some union with those, to have more of a strong presence of all of us together, rather than just one practitioner here and you're there, to come together to bring a community and develop a Reiki community here. And then I would love, of course, for that to expand further and into these other cities, small, large, have that presence be a little bit more mainstream. And it's, if anybody is before this or had, wonders if it was something scary or strange, to allow that space for them to at least feel that they could go and try and have the experience with Reiki. Now you have the wheels turning of how do I see this and how can I make this happen?
Well, you're a lawyer. I'm sure you can use that side of your brain to figure all those details out.
I hope so. Yeah, that was a great question, Nick. Thank you.
Of course. Go ahead, David.
For our listeners, just because, I was thinking about this because we were talking about this whole practice of, being with energy, whether it's from Reiki or we were talking yoga like Kundalini or NIS or, there's all these different things, right? All these different modalities that involves energy. And I read something the other day, and it was in that book, The Secret of Light by Walter Russell. It says, if you think that, I'm gonna butcher this, by the way, but I'm gonna try to make sense of this. He's basically saying that if you think that you don't have any senses beyond the 5 senses you've been taught you have, then you're mistakenly wrong. So what I would tell people, if you've either had Reiki done before or any kind of energy work and maybe just didn't get it, or you didn't think it did anything for you, or you couldn't tap into that, go deeper, because we do have senses beyond our 5. And when you go inwards and you start to be open to these things like Danny is saying, and you just go in there with, I guess, a little bit of peace of mind of just let me accept what's going to happen versus putting that expectation on it, you might just surprise yourself on what that sense is and what you are picking up on. And, for me, and you said it earlier, Nick, the whole nurturing piece of it, right? Mm-hmm. We've all been held by our mom at one point in time when we needed that nurturing in that moment of either sadness or fear by someone that we love dearly. And what we feel is beyond anything you can describe when you're being nurtured by that. And I feel like when you get a really good Reiki treatment and you have that good connection with the person who you're sharing that space with, I feel like that's what you're receiving. You're getting that, you're picking up on that sense that you've been familiar with before. It's not new. It may not be your mom, but there's this deep nurturing connection with this thing that you have experienced before. So I really want to say to all of our listeners, everyone has experienced this in one way or another in their life. But when you go through a Reiki session, it's just more focused, I feel like. And it's for you. It's in that moment for whatever you need it for.
Well, that's beautiful.
Always so well said, David. So I have another question. I mean, you brought up lineages. You brought up, the fact that there's people doing different things. I think it's always important to highlight, why would someone work with, say, you specifically versus someone else? Like, what are some things to look for, let's say, in a Reiki practitioner when people are investigating? And obviously, it'd be great if everyone can come down to El Paso, and or maybe this is where we talk about distance healing and whatnot too. But what are some things to look for when people are tuning in?
Sure. Mostly it's going to be whatever you feel, number one, drawn to and comfortable with. So for example, the practice that I do, the lineage, it's hands-on. And not everybody is comfortable with hands-on. We talked a little bit about the touch and everything. Some people just aren't comfortable with the physical touch. And I can't speak too much because I don't have much experience with other practices with Reiki, but there are practices or treatments where you don't have hands-on. It can be, close to your body and it's still very effective. So that's one thing. What makes you comfortable and not comfortable? And if touch is one of those things, then I would guide you, that you can go on the website, and usually it says this is a hands-on. Hands-on is usually kind of like the keywords, hands-on treatment. And if you're in doubt, I would contact that Reiki practitioner and ask, is this a hands-on treatment or is this, a little bit, the hands will be off the body. So I think that's one key thing. And it's kind of like anything else, like your doctor, your chiropractor, your naturopath. Do you feel comfortable with them? And that may be even setting up a consultation and just talking with them and seeing if you feel comfortable, because you want to feel comfortable in whatever you're receiving, whether it's going to the doctor or Reiki treatment or anything like that. So, and I know a lot of practitioners and as far as the way that I do it is, if someone is curious and, I can schedule 15 or 20 minutes to come and talk with them, see what they're working on. If they feel comfortable, we can go straight into a treatment, or we can schedule it for a different time. So allow yourself, ask those questions beforehand. One, what would I like to get from the Reiki treatment? Or what's bringing me to the Reiki treatment? What am I comfortable with? And do I feel good with this person? Do I feel comfortable? And I think a lot of Reiki practitioners, if not all of them, will have like an intake form where we send out when someone contacts me. Are you comfortable with touch, light touch? Are you comfortable with hand positions, touching your face? What brings you here? Can you lay on your back on a massage table for an hour, etc.? So just, I think first, get the questions clarity within yourself, and then ask questions, call up the practitioner. Hey, I saw, your website, your ad, whatever it is. Could you tell me a little bit more? There are different lineages. And that's another way to identify if you're looking for a specific type of Reiki treatment. For example, say I want to go to Vancouver. I could look up and I want to receive a treatment from the lineage that I practice, Usui Shiki Ryoho. I can Google it. I'll know what to expect. I know that when I walk in there, it's going to be a hands-on treatment with particular positions. I know about how long it's going to last and what to expect. And those are questions that you can ask also to the practitioner. What is it? Does it involve? What do you do? What do I need to do? And that's where I would kind of guide the person, is clarity within themselves and comfort, feeling comfortable.
I was going to say, is there anything else you think that you'd like to share with the listeners based on, whether it be becoming more open to energy medicine or anything else that you think that maybe we didn't ask in regards to Reiki?
I think that it's important to really be in touch and listen to what you're being drawn to and what you're not being drawn to. If you have a curiosity starting to come up and an interest and you want to know a little bit more, I would encourage you to follow that through. And I would also encourage that if something doesn't feel right or you're not ready yet or it's not the time, to also respect that. It's not always necessary we need to push and get to the next level and the next step. A lot of it is honoring and respecting, and that's one way for us to become closer and get to know ourselves. And when the time is right, if it's Reiki and you decide that that's what you'd like to try, take that first step and try a Reiki treatment. And if it doesn't feel right, that's okay too. That just not always pressure ourselves to have the next experience. But when we do feel ready, to try and let that openness guide you and maybe get a little more comfortable with our vulnerabilities and sharing our vulnerabilities with others. Because when we step into that room and we're telling somebody what's going on with us and what we want to work on, we're really sharing a very intimate part of ourselves, and that's beautiful. And that takes practice, because it's not so easy or really instilled in us to just go and be open with other people. It takes years of friendship and relationships for us to feel in that space. But sometimes when we feel comfortable and we find the right person that we want to share that vulnerability with, and if that's a Reiki practitioner or something else, to use that and try. And you can always back off. That's always an option. And I would just encourage everyone to just really give yourself an opportunity to see what's out there. And it's a beautiful experience. It's scary and it's unknown and it can be different, but there's a lot of beauty that can come from vulnerability and openness. And as of course, that's given that it's in a safe space and respectful space for that vulnerability to be held. But there are deep connections that can be made. There can be profound healing that can come from any kind of inner work and new experiences.
It's beautiful.
Well said.
Love
How
it.
do people find you here locally?
Here locally, I have a Reiki studio on the west side of El Paso. It's called Inner Peace is Cool. I think I'm quite the millennial.
That's awesome.
It's a small studio. I take appointments. My best way to contact me is my email. It's Daniela, Daniela, at innerpeaceiscool.com. And I'm kind of old school. I don't have social media at the moment, something maybe for later, but a website is perhaps in the works, maybe at a later time. But just a simple email reaching out to me, and that goes for if you have questions or you would like to chat a bit further, or you'd like to book a treatment. An email would be great. I would love to hear, and any thoughts or questions you may have had from this conversation. I would love to meet up or talk with the listeners, and it would be my honor to be of service to the community, to provide Reiki treatments to anybody interested.
So good. I want to come visit.
Come on down, Nick.
Inner Peace is so cool. I love that name. I think it's
right. It's because you feel it, right? You feel, and you just kind of have that moment, like, oh, it's cool. This feels cool, huh? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, what's that flow and the ease that you were speaking to earlier?
And then as soon as as quickly as the inner peace can come in, it can leave, right? And that's that ebb and flow of, in one moment inner peace can be really cool, and then it cannot be here, and that's okay. And then it'll return at some point. It's and that's what's cool about it. Because if we have something all the time, maybe I think you spoke to this, David. I don't know if it was before we got on, but sometimes when we have that different experience of not having something all the time, we appreciate it a lot more, and we savor it, and we stay in the moment with that, and then we also know that it leaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's part of the uncertainty of life. Amazing. So now we know where we can access Reiki, why it's so important as a healing modality, but also as an experience. And I love how it kept coming to that. Give yourself an experience of just letting go. And I can't help but think of, whether it be patience or people in this world of do and success and forward thinking mindset, constantly stuck in that future mode or in that state of suffering based on what's happened in the past. It's really an opportunity to have an experience of the present moment, to be with that life force and that flow of life. Thank you so much for everything you shared today. Now, David, you and I, we always get people to leave some sort of home play exercise. What do you think, Danny? Like, what would be a home play exercise that people could incorporate, or what would you think that they could do after hearing this episode?
Interesting question. I would encourage or offer to just see how you feel after hearing this information. Does it spark curiosity? Is it something that, okay, sure, I learned something new, and see where that leads you. Just a quick reflection can go a long way.
Beautiful, nice and simple.
Well, and I would challenge people, man. I'm going to push it a little further. I'm with Danny. You need to kind of chew on this a little bit, but I'm going to challenge our listeners to step into that unknown, to maybe some of that uncomfortableness of, I've never felt that inwards feeling before, and this is foreign to me. So if it is something, as you're listening to this is something that just seems very foreign, why not try a Reiki session? Why not go through that experience? And then after the experience, then you can let it marinate even some more and chew on it. I honestly think people just need to experience, because it's one thing to hear it, but it's a whole other thing to be on the table and experience it. And so that's why I'm gonna push our listeners to go and have a treatment done, and then make up your mind after that.
You just leveled up the home play. I love it.
I'm just a hands-on guy, man. Like, yeah. I think people need to feel it,
Yeah.
And I think it's just really important. But yes, thank you so much for your honesty and the passion that you bring to all this, and for your time. And yeah, we really enjoyed this. And for our listeners, we love you all. We hope that the message and the information we've been bringing has been helping you experience the growth that we're trying to help you with. And me and Nick are growing every day, but we're trying to pass some of this on to you all. So thank you. We love you guys. And Dr. Nick,
always a pleasure. And Danny, so much welcome into our circle of trust.
Yes. Thank you, Nick.
Into the Dr. Dad's family.
I appreciate you both. Again, it really was, I feel like it was an honor to come on, talk with you both, to share with you. I'm grateful what you all are doing with your podcast and the way that you are interacting with the community all across in different parts of the world. And just thank you. This was a very beautiful experience for me.
Cool. Us as well. Lots of love to you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the Dr. Dads and share with your family and friends. You can also follow and interact with Dr. Nick and Dr. David on Facebook and Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration and the latest in health and wellness. Be well.